Hello, I'm Chris Flay and welcome to the Sportfish Spring Spectacular. You join me today on the banks of the River Wye, which is one of my favourite rivers here in Derbyshire. It's a little bit high with a lot of rain we've had recently, but the clarity is very good. So what we're going to do now is just go through some of the rods, the tackle that we're going to use on a day for winter grayling fishing. So I've got two rods with me today. The first one, which I've got here, is a 10 foot for a 3 weight, which I'm going to be using for euro nymphing. The second one is a 10 foot for a 4 weight, which I'm going to use the indicator on. So let's look at the euro nymphing setup first. We've got a fully caged reel down here at the business end. On there, I've just got backing and then a camo French leader. What that'll do is enable me to flick out these lighter flies further into the water. Attached to that tapered leader, what we will have is one of these. This is a bi-coloured indication leader. I say bi-coloured, we've got pink, black and yellow there. What that'll enable us to do is see the indications when the sun goes in. We've got different colours on the water, so that's going to help us pick up the bites that we get. Now attached to that we'll have a tippet ring and we'll have some 4-pound fluorocarbon. What we're going to do is have this around about 6 foot in length. The reason I say that is that I think the deepest pool that we're going to fish today is around about 6 foot. We can shorten that when we get to some lighter riffles if we need to. Then the business end, we're going to have 2 flies on today's rig. So we'll have the point fly and then we'll have the dropper. Point fly is always that little bit heavier, as that's the one that's going to graze the bottom, hopefully where those grayling are going to be. Now the dropper, I'm going to have about 18 inches above the point fly. So let's get on to the second rod of the day. This is a 10 foot 4 weight, but on this I've got a floating line. Now Derbyshire Wye is a little bit strange on our section because we're not actually allowed to weight it, hence why I've got these two setups. This one, a very simple setup. Floating line. Attached to that, what I'm going to do is I've got some 6.5 pound fluorocarbon. I'm going to have probably 5 or 6 feet of that, and then attached to that we've got our 4 pound, which will be our leader section where the fly is attached to. Now the reason why I've got 2 separate line strengths on there, because on the heavier section we're going to be putting one of these on, an indicator. 3 colours, depends on the light which one's going to be easiest to see. On the point we've just got 1 single fly, so on there I've got a 3.5mm pink tag bead. I'll probably set the indicator around about 4 foot to start with, because that's the pool that I'm going to be fishing in. So the first setup that I'm going to use is the euro nymphing rod. What that'll enable you to do is sort of stand back a little bit, but I'll be able to fish the start to the middle of the river. Now I've already chosen my flies that I'm going to use today. So on the point, because it's clear but running high, we've got a 4mm quill orange tag. On the dropper, I've got a size 12 Tim shrimp. So let's see if we can get something for you. So we've got gravel on this inside, quite a fast running seam on that far side where it comes off the bend. Now I think they're going to be sat from that bend towards this inside line. The sun's from behind me, so let's get really low down and let's have the first cast of the day. So we're probably 2-3 foot deep on this inside line, and that's running through nicely. It's just, I can feel it clipping the bottom, which is just how I want it. So there's a deeper hole just in the middle of this run here, and that's where I think they're going to be. Remember staying as low as possible, watching that indicator all the way through that run. So as I was saying, with the euro nymphing and the no wading, it makes it difficult for me to fish sort of from half river over to that far side. So that's where that second rod and the indicator comes in play. So we'll give this another couple of runs through with the Euro kit, and then we can switch over. Don't be afraid at the end of the swim, at the end of the cast, sorry, to let those flies swing up, because that imitates a nymph rising from the bottom, and you quite often get a grayling take then. So we're going to switch over to the indicator rod. Now I know I've already fished this inside line with the Euro rod, but it doesn't hurt to go through it again with this indicator. One of those reasons I've got a different fly on. Let's get some line off that reel. So that's going through there nicely. So we don't want any drag. We want that indicator just flow down the river. But as you can see, we're able to fish that little bit further out now. So what I'm doing now is I'm just looking at this couple of sections of river. So it hits that fallen tree and creates quite a narrow seam. So I don't think they're going to be sat directly in that. But further down here, where we've got a little slack towards the inside, and then across the other side of that faster stuff, that's where I think they're going to be sat. I'm going to fish this again with the Euro to start with. Don't be afraid to fish right in the edges. When the river's high like this, those grayling will need some cover somewhere. Got the sun just starting to dip over the hill behind us. So we're going to put on what people know as a squirmy worm. Now this water height, worms are going to be a natural food source for the grayling. So we're going to fish this rapid on this near seam and see if we can get one to the bank for you. So grayling like to sit in between weed beds, behind rocks on gravelly areas. So that's what you've got to try and target for these fish. It does help when the river's clear. Thought I had a take then. You kind of treat the indicator like a dry fly. So with dry fly fishing, you want to be drag free. That's exactly what we want this nymph to be. So just going down naturally at the speed of the current until the end of the drift. Let's put one a little bit further out. Now when you're further out, you've really got to mend and work that line. So sod's law. While we were setting the camera up, we managed to get a grayling. So I'll just show you very quickly. She's just been in the net for a few seconds. A lovely little Derbyshire Wye grayling. Pop her back.
According to our investigators.
So we've just taken a break from fishing for the moment to go through my top 3 tips for winter grayling fishing. Tip number 1 would be colours of flies. Now, I know the squirmy's done it for us today, but my top 2 favourites are an orange tag and a pink tag. So that's my tip number 1. Tip number 2, it can be freezing on some of these days when we're out, and the temperature when the sun goes behind a hill can really plummet. So wrap up warm and stay safe on the river. Now tip number 3, fish care. So grayling are an absolutely stunning fish, but they are delicate. So please remember, when you are putting them back in the water, keep them in the water, keep them in the net and wet the hands. So we've moved back to the first pool that we started in this morning, and it's not been an easy day. Us fishermen will blame the weather, we'll blame high pressure, we'll blame river levels, but we've managed to winkle out a few. We've just got another one in the net now, all thanks to Squirmy. We tried the natural nymphs most of the day, and if I'm honest, they didn't really work, but we've persisted. We've only worked a small section. In these winter sessions that we go on for the grayling, you've really got to work the water. The grayling can only feed for sort of an hour and a half at a time. Thank you very much for joining us on this winter session. I hope you've learned a thing or two, and tight lines when you go out for yourself.